everybody, to this week's episode of the
Geek
Buddies. Hey! We're getting there.
We're getting it. That's a positive overall. I think it's better than we did last week, so that's a good thing overall. Thank you all so much for downloading this episode and getting ready to listen to our hijinks, our tomfoolery, our shenanigans about the world of entertainment, and so many things. I am John Rocha. I'm a writer, producer, and host of the Outlaw Nation and host on numerous other podcasts.
I am Michael Vogel. I'm a writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer and a television actor where you may have seen me on Silicon Valley, 911, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
You have anything coming up, Shannon, that you can talk about or no?
Nah, man. Nothing shooting. Nothing shooting. There was a role. There was a role. I think I told you guys about. There was a role that I had been up for.
Yeah.
That I thought I was going to get it. And it was actually shooting in New York. And it would have flown out the week that all of this stuff went down. So thank goodness I didn't get it.
Right. Well, what about you, Mike? You got anything you've been pitching around town? Has everything been put on hold because you were pitching all over the country? Are you now on hold?
Yeah, no, I mean, for the moment, everything is not going. I mean, and some animation studios are still like working and doing stuff because a lot of studios are figuring out how to do things remotely. And with animation, you can still do some stuff, but I think for picking up new things, like all of the things that I was pitching around town are kind of on hold until this is all over. So I have some small projects that I'm working on and a couple things. So I'm still doing like a little bit of work, but mostly I'm laying around and watching stuff and trying to fill my quarantine days with excitement and things around the house.
Yeah, my two fellow buddies are watching a lot of things and just think that I'm watching what they're watching and just going like, hey, let's talk about this. Let's talk about that. Well, I have to catch up because I'm doing a lot of things trying to build this damn outlet, this damn network. So I do the best I can to try to watch stuff. But one of the things they suggested I watch is the first episode of Tiger King. So we are going to definitely be talking about that later on in this first block of the show. And of course, we're going to talk about Wonder Woman 1984. We're going to talk about the delays going on there. We're certainly going to talk about this Iron Man 3 versus Thor 2 argument that's been raging across the internet because people have nothing else to do. And then, of course, the Ahsoka Tano situation showing up in Clone Wars, how that inspires us to talk about what characters we'd like to see jump from the animated series or from print or even the comic book series into live action, and which ones we think we'd like to see or which ones we think would work best. So that's what we're doing today here on this episode of the Geek Buddies. What else can we say before we start? Anything else anybody wants to say?
Nah, just hope that everyone is doing well out there. Hope you're practicing social distancing. Hope that you're staying at home, staying safe.
Yeah. And staying entertained.
Right. Staying entertained.
I was just saying entertained. You took it to a whole other place. But yeah, that's important too.
Come on, people are hooking up. People are hooking up with this whole coronavirus thing. That's not what the show's about, but you just know that's happening. I'm just saying. I know it's going out there. I mean, for God's sakes, we know what's going on in the world. But for those of you who are downloading us for the first...
All right. Yeah, this is it's a very special episode of the Geek Buddies, I guess.
I've been in the house for 14 days. Anyway, what we're doing, for those of you who are downloading us or give us a chance for the first time, thank you so much. For those of you who are returning, thank you so much as well. And the way we do the show is each of us tackles one geek news item. We talk about it for a little bit, and we move on to the next one. We do 3 of them in our first block. Then we take a few seconds of a break and then jump into our main topic. So let's jump into it now. Who's going first?
That would be me. So the coronavirus has basically shut down all the movie theaters in the U.S. right now, which everyone kind of thought that was coming. You heard rumors that like a couple of small theaters are still open here and there, but it seems like now most movie theaters are shuttered. And with that, the summer movies are continually getting delayed. We've heard movies of Black Widow, for instance, we talked about last week, was delayed to an unspecified date. This week, Wonder Woman 84, which was supposed to be coming out in the first weekend in June, was delayed until August 14th. So not a shocking move. Like everyone is kind of assuming that the summer movies might be a wash. Yeah. But the fact that they actually picked a date, that they did say August 14th, maybe the studios or Warner Brothers specifically are feeling optimistic that hopefully the bulk of this quarantine, the bulk of this coronavirus pandemic will have passed by then. Gentlemen, what do we think?
Mikey?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you. I think a couple things. I think that I was saying to somebody the other day, with all of the different, every time you turn on the news, there's somebody saying what they think. Trump recently said he hopes by Easter everything is fine. Other people are saying that's a bit too optimistic and that we're going to be in it for longer. And I was telling someone that I feel like watching what the movie studios are doing is one of like the most solid ways to kind of tell what's going on. June up till this week was kind of like still open territory. I think the studios were still feeling like, okay, well, hopefully we get through May, we're good. And Warner Brothers moving Wonder Woman definitely kind of indicates that they're thinking that this is still going to be pretty much shut down in June. And Shannon, I agree with what you were saying. The fact that they did move it to August as opposed to Disney that sort of moved everything off the plate. And even if I'm sure they have plans and strategies for what movies they're going to move, what they're going to replace, whether, like, as we were saying, Black Widow is going to take the Eternals spot and Eternals is going to get pushed or whatever. They haven't let us know that. But knowing that Warner Brothers just sort of picked that date in August, it either means they're feeling good about it or it means they're just trying to mark territory. Like they're just trying to make sure that they get that weekend in August, that they saw that was a prime weekend in this sort of new summer movie schedule. And they're trying to get it before Disney puts Black Widow there or Mulan there or something else.
That's what I defaulted to mentally. Is I think this is Warner Brothers and DC's move to try to kind of claim this territory, this area of August, because they anticipate that this will probably maybe break the crest. Like the top of the wave will finally come crashing down, and we'll get past this and kind of swim back out into the ocean as moviegoers, and we'll come in droves, right? We'll come in droves back to the theater. I'm not saying that's going to happen. And look, some of the Chinese theaters have started to reopen. That news came in overnight last night. And so if those are starting to reopen, I think that's going to give us a little bit of a hint of how people are going to react about going back to the movie theaters. Will the Chinese come back in droves to see this? They're launching like 5 past blockbusters, include the Avengers movie, Avatar. I mean, all the Avengers movies, rather, Avatar, Interstellar. So 6 of those blockbusters are supposed to be coming out to kind of encourage people to go to the theater in China and come back to the theater in China. So we'll see how they react to that. And that'll give us an idea about how how Americans might react to this situation and see how they're going to come back to theater. But I think you're right, Mike. I think it's moved to August because they want to kind of say, we're the first thing out. We've been scheduled it. Come see us, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Because I think this means that May and June is still going to be lockdown time for these theaters. And this is really interesting territory for these studios to be in, because, I mean, a lot of them really base their success off these films that come out during these popcorn season, and that funds other films coming down the pike in the next year, more the independent films or the more mature films or the more films they want to take a chance on with properties they want to maybe bring back. So the fact that they're moving just to August, and no other thing, like In the Heights wasn't given a date. They moved James Wan's film off that time. They moved all these other things. Scoob, I can't go see Scoob now when it was scheduled to go. And there's another film that they moved off as well. So they were moving all these things around. But Wonder Woman, and Patty Jenkins said this, she announced the date and she said, this needs to be seen in the theater. So there's not going to be any kind of streaming thing for Wonder Woman 1984. And I think it's a bit of a power move, for lack of a better term, by Warner Brothers to say, like, we think this is when it's finally going to stop being an issue. We want to be the movie you come back to the theaters to go see.
Yeah,
which I think makes sense.
Yeah, because I mean, Fast 9 was the only one that I think had set a specific date, and it was It was a year later.
Yeah,
Quiet Place Part 2, they moved that. No date.
James Bond too, right, to November 25th.
Oh,
that was the first
right.
one, then Fast 9, right? Yeah, right.
And that's November for James Bond, correct?
Yes, November 25th. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens.
Guys, I love summer movie season so much, and the first time in history we're not going to have a summer movie season. It's crazy.
Oh man. I mean, this is where our friendships were built. Let's be honest. The Geek Buddies were built in summer movie season. This is what we went to go do. I mean, we met in the fall, but we didn't really start doing things until the summer movie season. You guys obviously had known each other before.
Even in college, our friend Josh Moon used to say, he was like, summer movies is your time, winter movies is my time, because he liked the Oscar contenders and I like the blockbusters. So yeah, that is true. Yeah, so no summer movies this year. I mean, it's interesting. You know, I did. You guys had already seen it. I paid the $20 the other night and rented Invisible Man to watch at home, which was actually delightful. It was like something to do in the evening. I was excited all day. Like, oh, we're gonna order dinner and we're gonna watch Invisible Man, and had a blast. It was fantastic. So I do like that the studios are kind of like not doing it's not all movies just getting pushed. It's not everything just going to streaming, but like they're picking and choosing, and they're saying, hey, we'll give you these movies. And then these we're saving. Like you said, like Patty Jenkins saying that Wonder Woman needs to be seen on the big screen. It's like, cool. Like, I can't wait to go back and see it. I hope that it is in August. So fingers crossed.
Well, and to John's point about the fall, like when we all met in the fall, what we were talking about were the summer movies from just a couple of months before.
Great points. Great points. And when are they coming out? I got to buy it on DVD or Blu-ray. Well, I guess DVD at that time. Yeah.
We have a very limited sphere of conversation, the three of us. That's what we talk about.
I know. Give this a couple of weeks. This podcast is going to be filled with uncomfortable silences.
Yeah, right. Just like, hey, man.
Thanks for coming to the Geek Buddies. Today's topics.
So, top 10 Marvel movies.
So I played tic-tac-toe today. That was good.
That was good. Well, we all can't be dressing up in onesies and doing Zoom meetups, so we have to do the best we can in that way. So,
listen, you got to spend those evenings somehow. If I'm not going to go out and meet people for drinks, I'm putting on a onesie and having a drink on Zoom. That's how you do it. I have a friend's birthday party tonight at 9. There is also a dress code for that. We are doing Gay Cruise chic to remember the happier times when we could all be outdoors together. So we put together an outfit for that as well.
Well, then I have that one online.
We'll see, maybe. Okay. Right. And then I have on tomorrow night, I actually have a virtual date night with a friend to watch a Disney movie. We're gonna pick a Disney movie and we're gonna virtually watch it together. So you gotta stay busy, guys. You gotta. If you're an extrovert, you gotta stay social.
That's true. That's true.
See people, or you go crazy.
Yeah, that's right. Lindley and I have been sneaking out late at night around 7 or 8 when the sun's finally gone down. It's dark, and walking for an hour because we've been kind of like walking at a time where we don't think a lot of people are out and about, and also where a lot of people won't run by and yell at us for being out walking around. Because people get crazy about the social distancing thing, which I totally understand. But
you've actually had people yell at you? Are you serious?
Yeah. Well, yeah, of course. A couple of people yelled at us from the car when they're driving by on like the main strip in there, Beverly Hills. They're like, social distancing, just to be assholes or whatever. So they do that. So it's fine. But
I think that's a smart idea. I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but particularly for me, because I was already working from home prior to this. So my days, aside from having to work out at home in the morning, my days are kind of the same. Like I make coffee, I do my breakfast, I watch CNN for a little while, I do writing, I do emails. I don't have as much writing to do right now, but I do what I can do, and then I kind of spend the day doing whatever. And it's actually around 5 or 6 o'clock where the stir crazy really starts to set in, because usually that's when I like go meet you guys to see a movie, or go grab a drink with somebody, or go get dinner with a friend and catch up. And like, that's kind of like, I get out of the house and then I come home and settle in for the night. And so not having that has been the hardest part. So I do think like going out and taking a walk when the sun goes down is actually a really good idea.
This is self-isolation. Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly. That's what it feels like when you're in there. But yeah. So you do what you can. You do what you can. I mean, she's gotten me into RuPaul's Drag Race UK, so we're watching that first season together.
Oh, the UK version. Yeah, I'm on season 12 of the US version right now. So you got to get caught up, and then we can talk about that on here too.
Well, one thing we can talk about, speaking of raging all across the internet, is this thing that's been happening with Iron Man. This, for some reason, and this is the way it goes, right? We're all sitting around. Someone has to spark a debate. And who knew that there were these hidden feelings of anger going on the internet between these two films about which is the worst MCU film? We should get into it now, right? Iron Man.
Well, I just have a question, but go ahead and finish. Yeah, but
I was going to say Iron Man 3 versus Thor 2. This is the raging fire of a debate on social media about which film is the worst. I think this is a moot debate because Iron Man 2 is the worst of them. But
okay, that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah. This is what I tweeted, but apparently this is all over the internet. People are standing for Iron Man 3. People are defending Thor 2 Dark World. people are saying Iron Man 2 is not even the conversation because they think it's actually good. It has redeeming qualities, and I don't understand. What's the official stance of the Geek Buddies? Do we all believe that Iron Man 2 is the worst MCU film?
Yes.
I say so. Shannon.
I'll tell you why. Well, I'll tell you, I have a reason why I think, because I think those three are the three worst Marvel films. I think we can all agree that those three are at the bottom.
Will not agree, but continue.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh dear.
I love it.
Iron Man 2 to me is just not a good movie. I think it just doesn't really have anything going for it. I think that Robert Downey Jr. is still Tony Stark, and that's good. But aside from that, there's not a lot going on.
Yeah.
I think Thor 2 is a bad movie, but I think Thor 2 gives you the beginnings of the really great relationship between Thor and Loki.
Yes.
That wasn't as prevalent in Thor 1. I think that Thor 2 is where you saw this dynamic between those two, between Tom Hiddleston and Chris Hemsworth, that was like, that's really good. And you got a really, really good Captain America cameo. So like Thor 2 has that going for it. What Iron Man 3 has going for it is Tony Stark dealing with the PTSD he's having post Avengers. That they really doubled down on. Avengers was such a big event that it was bigger than any human being has ever dealt with before, and Tony was having a really hard time with that. So I think those two things are the good things in those movies. So I think the debate is, to me, and I don't really know the answer, which of those two things is better? Tony having PTSD or the Thor-Loki relationship? And that's how you debate which one is the second worst, because Iron Man 2 is the worst. Shannon?
Right.
Okay, so I've been doing, you guys know this, I've been doing a little MCU marathon rewatch every night. And right now, I just did Captain America First Avenger last night. So
still holds up, right?
It's so fantastic. A lot of people have issues with Captain America, and I understand the montage is a little montagey. Bucky's fall gets bungled, in my opinion. But Iron Man 2, that was a case of it was a rush job. Like Iron Man came out in 2008, Iron Man 2 came out in 2010. And I don't remember specifically, but Jon Favreau expressing some reticence about having that quick a turnaround. Like, we need a little bit more time. And the thing that they needed more time with was the script, because you had great aspects of that movie. I mean, Sam Rockwell as Justin Hammer, like, that is such a great performance. Hopefully they are able to bring him back at some point. They probably won't. They brought him back for the short with Ben Kingsley. Yeah. Even and I don't think that it was not the best introduction of Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow. I don't think she really had a handle on what the role was yet. But she and Jon Favreau had a fantastic, the Happy Hogan Black Widow infiltration sequence at Justin Hammer's place. I mean, that was a great sequence. There are great aspects to it that just didn't all come together. And anytime you have Robert Downey Jr. in a Marvel movie, it's going to be entertaining. Thor 2, I will defend until the day I die. I enjoy Thor 2. I don't think it belongs anywhere near the bottom. I mean, maybe 5 or 6 spots up.
What's worse than Thor 2?
Iron Man 2.
Okay.
Captain
Marvel. For me,
yeah.
Captain Marvel.
Yeah, for me too.
Captain Marvel will connect with me.
I can see Thor 2. I like Thor Dark World. I've seen it numerous times. I will never see Captain Marvel again. Never. I mean, once was enough. And I had to see it, I think, a second time with you guys. And I just was bored out of my freaking skull. It's not my jam. She does a great job at it. I think there's a better movie. And I think that's not a coincidence that they moved those two directors off for the sequel. And for me, so I just didn't like it that much. But Thor Dark World, I think Shannon and I are in the Man of Steel camp against you, Mikey, on this one. Because we both enjoy this movie, and I really like what goes on with Stellan Skarsgård character. I even don't mind the Kat Dennings stuff. I like that. I think Natalie Portman has more to do in this one than be just the wide-eyed looking around at what a weird muscly guy from Asgard that she does in the first film. I think they give her more to do here. I like the playfulness of that little thing that's jumping around, all that kind of stuff. But definitely what you pointed on first, what you hit on first, Michael, is this relationship between Loki and Thor, the death of Thor's mom. That is heartbreaking and powerful and so unusual to see in a film. To see Loki against the wall, just completely crestfallen and broken because the one person he actually loves in the whole family dies, and the rest of the people who he doesn't love are still alive, and how much that destroys him. And you see them coming together to fight against Christopher Eccleston's character. And yes, you can definitely have issues with that. I got no problems with that. Certainly that was not well done, undercooked, so to speak. But overall, I actually enjoyed that film a lot more than most people give it credit for. But Iron Man 3, I also will defend. I like Iron Man 3. I like Guy Pearce in the movie. I like his transition from the opening to what he is afterwards. And I know people can get mad at me. I think he does a better job than Sam Rockwell does as Justin Hammer. I enjoy his character more. I'm glad that he can dance in a 3-piece suit. That's sweet. But I like what Guy Pearce is doing more in terms of the villainy and the charm and the true dread and terror.
They're so different. They're totally different.
Right. But people try to say Iron Man 2 is better because of that, and I don't agree with Sam Rockwell's performance. I don't think that's the reason why it's better. I just don't. And I like Rebecca Hall. I like her being someone you don't know what side of the fence she's on. But number one is what Michael brought up, and that's the PTSD angle. That is important to me personally as a person who served in the military, who understands about PTSD. I also think there's no way you don't have those subjects broached in Endgame if you don't first send up the flare of it in Iron Man 3. This idea
I think that's a good point.
Right? The ramifications, and you see them deal with it all in Endgame. Yeah.
I think the where Iron Man 3 doesn't do it for me. I mean, it's a great episode. It's what I called Thor 2 for a long time. Thor: The Dark World is a great episode of the Thor TV show.
Great.
Same thing with Iron Man 3. Like it's I understand your PTSD argument, but ultimately it is not essential to the DNA of the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a whole. And I think coming off the sort of titanic reception that Avengers got, Iron Man 3 was just sort of like, okay, what next?
Well, I think that they fixed it. They fixed their formula, and we'll see how long they can sustain it with the Captain America movies.
Yep.
Because both Winter Soldier and obviously Civil War they're Captain America sequels. His arc, Steve's arc, is at the center of them, but they definitely feel like they grew bigger and bigger along with the Marvel Universe, whereas the Thor movies and the Iron Man movies kind of don't.
Except for Ragnarok.
Ragnarok for sure does. Like Ragnarok does feel like it kind of builds on everything. Look, I think maybe my issue with Thor 2 is that you two just went off and saw it without me and didn't tell me about it. And maybe that's why I have such a horrible feeling about it in my heart, is because I texted you guys from work to ask if you wanted me to get the tickets for Thor 2, and you two were just sitting in the movie theater together, having gone without me. And I think maybe that's my issue with Thor 2. Maybe I have to give it another shot.
Every once in a while, you get to get left out and see what it feels like, Mike. It's
I don't like it.
It's good for you. It's healthy for you.
I don't prefer that. I prefer to be left in.
Don't get the tickets. We're already in the theater.
I will say this for our listeners who just want a little window into the universe of our friendship.
Yeah.
At least Rocha was honest.
I was.
Shannon would have gone down with the ship lying about it and said, don't tell him. We'll just go see it again. Don't tell him we're here. And Johnny at least texted me and told me true.
I did.
Okay. One.
And to be fair.
Okay, hold on. John,
I gotta hear this.
John did not call you to tell you the truth. John texted you to stick it to you.
No, that's not true at all.
And I would not have lied about it. I would have omitted. I would have lied by fact omission.
Right.
I just wouldn't have brought it up.
We know Vegas boy. We know how you handle things. What I texted Michael was, I said to Michael, no, we're in the theater now. I wasn't doing to stick it to him. I was just saying we should tell him. Because Jen and I, we had the conversation.
We were laughing about this. We were laughing.
We were. But
I think we should move on to the next topic, because this is a very difficult topic for me.
Well,
let's bring up a lot of things.
let's not necessarily move on. The question more is like, what do you do? Do you guys let's end this section by saying, what do you think sparks these kinds of debates? Is it just stir crazy stuff, or is there really kind of this underlying feeling about like the worst MCU film? Is this something that people really kind of have conversations about all the time?
Yesterday, on a completely different subject, but I think this answers the question. I found this, someone else posted this. There was this like tier list that you could do yesterday where you could rank like almost all of the Disney animated movies and the Pixar movies.
I saw you post that,
and I posted it yesterday, and I spent the next 3 hours of my day arguing with people about my rankings, who they couldn't believe that I put Monsters University above Monsters Inc., which is what I argue about the most, and like a bunch of other things. I think this is the other thing. We are all sitting at home. We are all somewhere on the scared shitless, terrified, anxious, bored, stressed, dealing with our kids. Like whatever we are on this spectrum, we need something to distract us. And honestly, arguing about what's better, Thor 2 or Iron Man 3, is a hell of a lot better than arguing about social distancing or when this is all going to be over. Like, this is just fun. Like, we need to have fun. And this is a fun debate, as we are seeing here.
Agreed. There are so many things out of our control right now.
Yeah,
and one thing in our control is our opinions.
Yeah, true. What were you going to say, Mikey?
No, I was going to say that I think based on what you guys are saying, and based on the fact that I do think that the Thor-Loki relationship is pretty awesome, I think I would say that Thor 2 goes above Iron Man 3. I think for me, my rankings would be Iron Man 2 at the bottom, then Iron Man 3, then Thor 2. That's me.
Okay.
Iron Man 2.
Bottom.
Yep. Thor 1, not a fan of.
Okay.
Captain Marvel.
Wow. Wow. All right. I would say definitely I would say Iron Man 2, Captain Marvel. And this is not a shot at Brie Larson. I like Brie Larson in the movie. Iron Man 2, Captain Marvel. Then I'd say, probably Thor 2. And then Iron Man 3, and then Thor 1. Yeah, I think that's how I go. Because look, I just like Hemsworth as Thor. I really do. So it kind of wins the day for me. And I still enjoy the first one for the comedic beats that he puts in that film. I do enjoy that. Yeah. So I will defend that film. And I think as much as I do enjoy Kat Dennings in Thor 2, it does get a little much after the restaurant scene where she goes to get Chris O'Dowd, take Natalie away from Chris O'Dowd. She's a lot more palatable in the first one, and in the second one, it starts to get a little annoying towards the end of the film, and this is why she wasn't in the third one. I don't think there's any need to bring Kat Dennings back ever again in that role for the MCU, but I imagine they will at some point.
WandaVision.
WandaVision. She's in WandaVision.
Oh, she is? Okay. So okay, cool. Fair enough. All right. Well, there you go. She'll be back. And she fits. That makes a lot of sense. That kind of humor fits for what she's going to do in WandaVision. Her unique style of humor fits for WandaVision. So there you go. All right. What's our last one before we get into our break?
Tiger King.
Oh man.
All right, so that's me. So Netflix, in this age of first when quarantine really first hit and people started to have to stay at home, they gave us Love Is Blind, which was a very bingeable show, and thank God for that. And then they've given us maybe the greatest gift of 2020 so far, the documentary Tiger King, about Joe Exotic and his Oklahoma Tiger Zoo and the shenanigans and hijinks that go on. It is a 7-episode documentary. My brother and I watched it this past weekend. We watched all 7 episodes within 24 hours because we could not stop. Shannon also watched all 7 episodes. And as we were preparing what we were going to talk about this week, we asked Johnny if he had watched them yet. He had not. And you just watched the first episode. Is that correct?
Yeah. This morning. I watched the first episode this morning after Mornings with the Outlaw. Yes, I did.
And it was funny, like my brother and I, and I don't know if this is how it was for you, Shannon, like we happened to watch it, like we were sitting here and I was trying to decide what to watch. And my brother was like, oh, go to that Tiger King thing. I've heard that it's crazy and I hadn't heard anything about it. And we watched it. And by the time we got into the 7th episode, I started seeing memes. I started seeing other people on Facebook talking about it, other people on Insta talking about it. And very quickly, everyone is obsessed with the show because it is super binge worthy. It is super insane. Yeah. You watch the first episode and you're like, this shit is crazy. And every episode gets crazier. John, what did you think of the first episode?
Here's what I'll say. This is where y'all's Florida roots really come out, and I don't have those Florida roots because these people, these are not the kind of people you find in Virginia. Let me just put that out there now. And I was watching it going, these are absolutely insane people, and I don't understand the hubris of certain Americans in this country who think it's okay to have big game as pets. And I'm glad in the first episode they highlight that guy, because I remember reading about the guy who unleashed all his animals out into the wild. So many people could have died, and to have one person in charge of all those animals should not happen in this country. I found myself gravitating towards the woman, although only because she's the other option, not because she's somehow more sane in this situation in any way, shape, or form. But I found myself gravitating more to her point of view, and I do hope they pass these regulations.
Keep
I'm sure, right? Because I'm only doing it for the first episode, and I just thought this is absolute madness. And that Don guy, who seems to be like really responsible about what he's doing with those animals. I don't know if there's more to come from him, but certainly he seems like that would be the kind of person that could be okay having one. But I mean, like, really, does one person out of 30 really make sense? Don or Doc? Doc, whatever his Indian name is, Bhagavad, whatever his name is, that doctor guy, like I think that's the exception to the rule. And just because there's one person who does it right doesn't mean you should have other people doing this insanity. That's my impressions after the first episode.
So I think what I'll say is, I think in general, I don't think anybody should be keeping animals in these conditions at all. And I think the show makes, like, I've talked to some people and I'm like, you got to watch Tiger King. And we do have friends who are a bit more sensitive and they're like, I don't want to watch this, animal cruelty and all that, which I totally understand. I think that the documentary makes a pretty clear statement on the fact that, like, nobody should really be keeping these animals like this. Like, this is not a good thing. Whatever your opinion on bigger zoos are, like the zoos that are much more conservation based and trying to like repopulate and doing things, some of the bigger, better kept zoos, these zoos in particularly these zoos in middle America where they're bringing people in to like pet the tigers and have these experiences, like, it's just not good.
Yeah.
The other thing I will say though is what this documentary actually is about though is people who you think are crazy and the people that you don't think are as crazy, and then watching each episode roll out and realizing that everything is way crazier than you thought it was. Yeah. I have never seen a documentary where each episode you're like, oh, well, this shit just got bananas. And then you get to the end and you're like, I'm sorry, what? Who did what now? So everybody go watch Tiger King. Drop what you're doing. Watch it right now. Yeah. Shannon, what were you going to say?
It is the animal cruelty arguments aside, which obviously agree with both of you, having sort of any sort of big game trying to domesticate them. That's a terrible idea. This is a Coen Brothers movie come to life. Had this docuseries never been made and it had been announced as that's going to be their next feature, you'd be like, oh yeah, this is nutty. This is absolutely something Joel and Ethan Coen would make, or something Wes Anderson would make. It is supremely watchable in the state that we are in right now, and that you are looking to kind of fill the hours. And it is not Netflix docuseries are great at keeping you guessing. Yeah. Because something that they all do is they tee you up for hope. Mm-hmm. And then the next episode, they yank it out from under your feet.
Joe Exotic, the main character, is a gay, mulleted, gun-toting Oklahoman who has 227 tigers.
Yeah. What?
You can't write that. He's literally Corky St. Clair from Waiting for Guffman with a mullet and a Southern accent. Like, it is the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. He is the best TV that I've seen in months. Yeah. There's no better TV than Joe Exotic. Oh, and he releases his own country albums. I don't think that's his voice, but that's just me. That's
two.
another conspiracy. There are a lot of conspiracies about.
Well, not just country albums, Mike. He's got like underwear. He's got sex gels. He's got all kinds of things you can buy in the gift shop. You got a shirt. You can say a tiger peed on me. There you go. Those are fantastic things you can get. I will tell you this. I'm not gonna lie to you. As I've been like more entrepreneurial about this channel, I was watching that and going, oh, maybe I need to do that. Maybe it's a little outlaw underwear. It wouldn't be a bad idea to sell in the line. Like there's a little bit of things that you can enjoy here, and maybe I'll go forward with it. A couple of more episodes. I was telling the guys before we started the show that I think this is more their thing because that's a Florida thing. But
you know
maybe I'll give it a couple more episodes. And
I'm gonna try and go to bed tonight, and my phone's gonna start dinging because you're gonna get to the end of episode 2 or 3, and you're gonna be like, "Wait a minute, holy shit, Carol the cat lady did what?"
That's fair. That's fair. Because I mean, Wild Country was the last one that I started like this, and I was like,
that Wild Country was a ride.
That's an amazing documentary series. So if this is even close to that, then I'm gonna enjoy the ride overall. But yes, first impression of it is this is madness.
This is Wild Country on meth. So,
which they get into that later.
Oh, I think my favorite shot was the PETA person who was in the cage screaming because they're in the cage. And like, they're crazy too. It's just something about animals. It turns people really primitive. They become really primal when they get around animals too much. You know
how like Knives Out. You know how like in Knives Out, Rian Johnson sort of made this point in the movie that he had characters that were super sort of traditionally right-wing conservatives, and he had characters like Toni Collette that were very like uber left-wing liberal. But the whole point of the movie was that they were all awful. That's Tiger King.
Well, listen, I'm absolutely sensing that already from the first episode. There's no real pure person I should be on the side of. At the second she pulls out her cat wardrobe, she lost me, like fully as a supporter. I was like, all right, you're on my side, but I'm not going to go and, like be all about you in this situation.
Hey there, cats and kittens. It's Carol here with your cat update. Got a kitty cat update for everybody with the cats and the kitties. Meow. Tiger King.
It did make me want to go get an Inside Edition producer, though, and immediately put him on the Outlaw Nation. So we'll see. We'll see.
Oh, my God. John, can you picture you in a reality show? Oh, my God. That'd be amazing.
Brilliant. Are you kidding?
By the way, I can absolutely picture that.
Yeah.
I can picture that.
I've tried to talk her into it. She won't do it. Literally, I was like, we should do a reality show just called The Outlaws, where the thing is on for 24 hours a day. The camera's on for 24 hours a day, following us everywhere. And she refuses to do it. But I think it would be brilliant.
At least we know you've got a smart woman on your hands.
That's true. That's true. Fair enough. We call it the Llama King. That's what we call it. There we go. Little South American reference. Thank you. All right. Well, Tiger King's on Netflix, so give this thing a shot. These guys talked me into it, so we'll all talk you into it. It's 7-episode series. Go and see it, and we'll take a quick break for our people who are listening to us on the podcast version of this episode, and then we'll be right back after this. And we're back. Well, there it is. Exciting stuff there. Thanks so much to the sponsors, and thanks to us for reading those words from our sponsors here on the Geek Buddies show. Let's jump into our main topic. Michael, you and Shannon pitch this one. Please take it away.
All right. Well, the biggest news that happened this week, I mean, there's not a ton going on in the entertainment industry with everything shutting down, but big news that kind of got leaked and then got confirmed is that Rosario Dawson is in season 2 of The Mandalorian as a guest star, not a series regular. And the bigger news is that she is playing Ahsoka Tano, many people's favorite Star Wars character from Star Wars Clone Wars, Anakin Skywalker's Padawan, one of the coolest characters in the Star Wars universe, and one of the characters that actually ends up starting the rebellion. So of course, anyone who's been listening to us knows Ahsoka Tano, and of course that you also know that we're all big fans of Ahsoka Tano. And the internet kind of exploded. I was waiting in line at Pavilions to get in and buy some groceries when it happened, and really it just kind of like, with everybody stuck at home and looking for stuff to do, this just sort of went crazy, and Star Wars fans just lost their minds. obviously Rosario Dawson, super, super cool, super geek-friendly actress who's been in a lot of really cool genre things like Daredevil, the Marvel TV series on Netflix and other stuff. But the bigger news, even than Rosario Dawson, I think, is that Ahsoka Tano is going to make the leap from animation to live action. And what that means for the Star Wars universe going forward, lots of discussion about that. So with that, I mean, that's the big news. I think, like Johnny said, talking about other things we'd want to see, but I think also talking about how we got to this point, like what the Star Wars universe has been doing. I know, like, a lot of people who have been listening to us know that there's a lot of criticisms of Star Wars as a franchise, me particularly, but, with Rise of Skywalker, with a lot of other things, obviously with the whole way they sort of, a lot of people feel botched the new trilogy by having different directors come in, didn't have a really strong direction. We've talked a lot about the things that Star Wars as a franchise does wrong. But here is something that they do very, very different from Marvel, which is tying in their animated universe. Marvel has their animated series that are on Disney XD and are now on Disney Plus that you can watch. But they, aside from having the same characters, the stories aren't the same, the continuity is not the same. It's kind of a separate thing that just sort of continues on those characters. Star Wars made a very different decision. And when you look at what they've done with Rogue One, with Solo, with The Mandalorian, you can kind of see a different strategy than what Marvel's doing, than what DC is doing. And I think with the Ahsoka Tano casting, we're seeing it really, really pay off for them in a big way at a time when they really need some big news post Rise of Skywalker. So with that said, what do you guys think about all this, and what are your thoughts?
Well, in terms of the casting, I mean, I think that's awesome. I mean, as we've discussed before, like I had to watch all of Clone Wars leading up to season 7. So I really garnered an affection, not just for Ahsoka Tano, but for a lot of characters that we would kind of see in the background in the prequels, like Plo Koon, for example. Plo Koon is a great, awesome character. Having a performer at the caliber of Rosario Dawson, and this is becoming more commonplace that big names will do limited run television series, but it definitely speaks to Lucasfilm. They understand the popularity of this character, and that's why they're giving that role to someone as established, as sort of, again, geek revered as Rosario Dawson. In terms of what you were saying, Mike, about this is how Star Wars sort of separates itself from Marvel. Like, yeah, I mean, the Marvel movies, now that we're seeing the Disney Plus shows, whatever What If is going to be, like, obviously it's going to have the MCU players, but it's not going to be necessarily connected. What that is going to do is, they've had 23 movies. Star Wars has had 11. So they have the real estate in terms of other mediums, whether it be the animated series, whether it be the comic books or the novels that are now all officially canon. I think they have a lot of things on the table that they can use, and it's very smart that they are now starting to use them.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think Rosario Dawson's a great choice. I like that they went with a woman of color. I have to be honest with you. I thought that was fantastic, and Ahsoka Tano, in my mind, is a woman of color, is a character of color. I've always thought that way because the orange skin and everything like that. I just always, and just the look of her felt exotic, and I like that. And so, okay, cool. Let's cast a woman of color play, and she's going to be an older woman of color. Rosario Dawson, I think, is in her 40s, so that's going to be. So that means we're going to see an Ahsoka Tano that's a little more lived in, a little more grizzled, has been through some adventures, some experiences. We're still, like, I just finished watching the episode of Clone Wars, that episode 5 that just dropped. That's still a young Ahsoka Tano. That's not an Tano that's been out there doing the things that she's doing. And, she was with Sabine. So we'll see what if that kind of bleeds in to her story in The Mandalorian. Will she make a reference to that overall? We'll see. But of course, Rosario's done this with the Marvel TV shows, coming in, doing a couple episodes, that nurse character and what have you. So it's not out of the realm of possibility for her to do it. So I like that they cast her in it, and she's done action film or action sequences before, so I got no problem with that. But I like that they're opening the door to this stuff, which is what you guys were kind of pitching me on, to make this the main topic, the idea of opening the door to these characters. And I was just watching the episode, I was thinking, oh yeah, her friend who did that whole, who turned on her, that kind of situation you could explore as well, that you saw that they revisited from Clone Wars. Also, the idea of, for me, I'm always a big fan of Holdo. I love Holdo. I would love to see a live action Holdo. I have never had. Is that his name, or Hondo? Is that what's his name?
Hondo.
Sorry, Hondo. Sorry, hold on. I was thinking of
Holdo is Laura Dern.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, Holdo's Laura Dern. But I like to see Hondo, which is that character. I always enjoy him when he showed up on Rebels. Wouldn't it be fun to see that? We've seen hints at the Ghost. We've seen hints at other characters popping up, but never fully see them live action. And I agree. I think, Michael, I think you make a great point. I think this is the way for Star Wars to kind of move past the Skywalker saga while still having characters that are connected to the Skywalker saga.
Exactly.
But don't necessarily like have to talk about the Skywalker saga or be knee deep in the Skywalker saga. We get to watch their own lives.
Well, even because to your point, just a quick rundown of the things that we have seen. Because I mean, I think that Rogue One was the first time that this really happened in Star Wars. Rogue One came out, and we had like a wealth of sort of like Star Wars Rebels Easter eggs. Right. Chopper, the droid from Rebels, had a cameo. He was spotted on Yavin 4 at the base. The Ghost is seen at the Yavin base, which is the ship that they fly in Rebels. It's also in the big battle at the end over Scarif. General Syndulla, who is Hera Syndulla from the Twi'lek captain who captains the Ghost, is called for over the loudspeaker at Yavin 4. And then the biggest thing that happened in Rogue One was the introduction of Forrest Whitaker's character, Saw Gerrera.
Right.
Saw Gerrera actually originally appeared as a much younger character, voiced by Andrew Kashino, the voiceover actor, in season 5 of Clone Wars in a big arc. So you had this character show up that was sort of integral to the plot, who you could go back to the animated series and see his backstory. So that was like a really big indication that they were taking the animated series seriously and that it was actually a bigger part of the universe. Then in Solo, that sort of continued on, even though it confused a lot of people, because Darth Maul showed up at the end as the head of the Crimson Dawn crime syndicate. Which a lot of people were confused because obviously Darth Maul dies at the end of episode 1, but viewers of Clone Wars knew that he had been brought back. He actually mentions Dathomir, which is one of the planets from the animated series. Even Rise of Skywalker, we get a hint of it. The Ghost appears again. And then in Mandalorian, and I think this is where things get really interesting, we have the Darksaber introduced at the end of the season, which we all talked about when it happened. And that ties into Mandalore, the Mandalorian people, the Mandalorian race, what happened on Mandalore. And that's going to be a big part of this season 7 of Clone Wars that's currently airing, where I believe, based on the trailer, we're going to see Ahsoka and Darth Maul actually face off with each other. So clearly, Ahsoka Tano's in season 2 of Mandalorian. The Darksaber is in season 2 of Mandalorian. What's really interesting is Jon Favreau actually did the voice of Pre Vizsla, a character on Clone Wars, which is the character who we first meet with the Darksaber. So obviously, when Jon Favreau did Clone Wars, he met Dave Filoni. These guys talked. Whatever it was, that something sparked something with Favreau, where when he did go do Mandalorian, he was like, "Hey, I want to like pull some of this stuff in," which is how you get Filoni in there. And it looks like they're really pulling in a lot. So I think that this season of Clone Wars that is currently airing, season 7, and whatever happens with Ahsoka is going to be really interesting to watch, because I think we're going to see some good indications of what we can look forward to in season 2 of Mandalorian. And I think that the other thing, Johnny, to your point, they call Ahsoka Tano a guest star based on the way season 1 of Mandalorian rolled out. That means she could just appear in one episode, or maybe she appears in one episode and comes back in the finale. Like, I don't think we should expect her to be the star. Mando is the star of Mandalorian. But I think that by casting an actress on the caliber of Rosario Dawson, it sort of speaks to the fact that they're at least keeping the possibility open that this is somebody who could take on a much bigger role in the Star Wars universe.
Look, if Ewan McGregor was going to step down and do that Kenobi series into a TV series, why couldn't Rosario Dawson do that as an Ahsoka Tano? She could be launched from here, certainly. Shannon, sorry.
Well, yeah, and just going forward, knowing that the Star Wars films are on a little bit of a break right now, there are more Star Wars series coming. There's the Kenobi series that is in the pipeline. There's the Cassian Andor. I mean, these are 3 different types of shows in 3 different settings. So you have a very kind of wide canvas of characters to which to work.
Yeah, and I still think we've got more to come from Gina Carano's character in the 2nd season as well in Mandalorian. And I think the Ahsoka stuff would kind of get in the way with that if you made it too much about her.
But what's interesting, Shannon, to your point, and kind of similar to the role that Rosario played in the Marvel shows, the Cassian Andor series would lead up to Rogue One, which is the beginning of the rebellion. The Obi-Wan Kenobi series takes place, obviously, also leading up to Rogue One, as he is on Tatooine looking over Luke Skywalker. And obviously the Mando series takes place post Return of the Jedi. But given Ahsoka's age in Star Wars Rebels, plus when we see her at the end of Star Wars Rebels, which is post Jedi, Rosario Dawson could technically play Ahsoka in all of those eras if they were to have her show up in all of those series.
Yeah.
She is alive and kicking and going on adventures. We're about to see what happened to her leading up to sort of Revenge of the Sith. But anyone who watches Rebels knows that Ahsoka Tano is sort of, as I was saying, like essential to getting the rebellion started. And then post Rebels goes off in search of Ezra with Sabine, which John was talking about. So there's a lot of adventures for her. And I think like I was talking to a friend of mine who said this, and I don't disagree. Ahsoka Tano is sort of the maybe the great hope to save Star Wars.
Yeah, that's.
I think that.
Yeah.
No, go ahead, Johnny.
No. As you were saying that, that idea actually occurred to me in my mind as you were saying it. This idea that Ahsoka could be the savior that was promised, right? This idea of the balance of the universe, the balance of the Force, because she has rejected the Jedi ways, but not to go evil, just to look like there's something else out there. There's something more in the middle. And, a lot of people think she's the first or one of the first gray Jedi or gray paladins. That's certainly possible with her character. Qui-Gon Jinn, a lot of people thought was a great Jedi, or can make cases that he might be a gray Jedi as well. So that you might be right, Mike. This idea of being too extreme one way, too extreme the other way. You just mentioned the Rian Johnson stuff. The middle is where most of us exist. So the middle is where we usually try to find our heroes who understand the balance. And maybe Ahsoka Tano is the one that's supposed to bring balance to the universe. Wouldn't that?
That's interesting. That is actually not what I meant, but that's a really good point. What my friend said was more like speaking from a franchise standpoint, although I think you make some really good points in that direction. I just mean that, like, I think that post episodes 7, 8, and 9, although I very much like Daisy Ridley and I very much like the character of Rey and I like Poe Dameron, like, I don't think any of these characters really grabbed people the way that maybe you would want characters to grab you. I think that they're fun characters. I think people really like them. I think there's a younger generation that's growing up with them that is probably much more tied to them than I am. So I'm not saying this is any kind of extreme but I think that I think Ahsoka Tano sort of is all the things that they wanted Rey to be. I think she already is those things. I think she represents she was a character that was hated when she was first introduced. Like, Star Wars fans despised her, and now people are flipping out that she's going to be in live action. I think that her journey from being Anakin's Padawan to leaving the Jedi Order to starting the rebellion to doing whatever she's going to do that we don't know, only Dave Filoni really knows what he has planned for her. I think she represents a direction for the Star Wars universe that is much stronger, more hopeful, and more optimistic than where we left things post episode 9.
And more realistic, to be honest with you, and how to approach this thing. What do you think, Shane?
Yeah. I mean, everything that you guys have said, I echo. I mean, and depending on her reception in Mandalorian, who's to say that we don't get an Ahsoka film? I mean, there's nothing to say that she couldn't then make the leap to the big screen. I mean, that's the great thing. And again, not to toot the Disney horn, but I mean, that's the great thing that they've done, is making the Marvel universe, making the Star Wars universe, making everything is canon now. So you can have people hop from one medium to another. And I think for fans like us, for big time fans like us, for big time fans like our listeners, that's an exciting thing. For casual fans, great as well. I mean, there's no downside to it.
Right.
And I think what's great about again, to echo your point, what Disney does really well in Marvel, and what I think they're doing well with Ahsoka, is that the hardcore fans know who she is, the casual fans don't, but the casual fans pick up on the excitement of the hardcore fans. And the casual fans, you did this all the time with Marvel, where you'd be like, oh my God, Loki's in the movie. Well, who's Loki? Thor's brother. He's like a trickster. Okay, got it. Who's Ahsoka Tano? She was Anakin Skywalker's Padawan. She trained with him during the Clone Wars before he became Darth Vader. Like, there's a quick, like, sort of 2-3 sentence thing you can say to people, to the casual fan. They're like, oh, that's cool. Okay, I want to, I want to see more of that. So it's interesting. I think that there's a lot of excitement around this. I hope it pays off. I'm obviously super excited about it.
Is there one character, and we got to wrap up here in a couple of minutes, but is there one character that you all like would like to see jump over from either print, comic book, or TV, and become live action in a feature film
Are we?
or in a series?
I'm wondering if Shannon and I are going to say the same thing. What's yours, Shannon?
Dr. Aphra.
Dr. Aphra! Ding, 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 ding.
I have to, sadly, I have to concur with my colleagues. I agree. Dr. Aphra would have been my choice. I thought it was going to be cute and say that, but no, you guys agree as well. That is such a fantastic character. Really enjoyed when I was reading the comic books. I really enjoyed her character for the first 20 issues or whatever that she was on. Then she got her own series and everything like that. So I've always enjoyed her character, and such an interesting new character in the Star Wars universe, an archaeologist or what is it? I guess an archaeologist, but who's also like on the side of Darth Vader and kind of humanizes Vader, for lack of a better term. I like that character.
Yeah, I think
people compare her to Indiana Jones. I think she's more Nate Drake because she's
That's
not.
fair.
She's not necessarily. I mean, she's a treasure hunter. I mean,
yeah, right,
yes,
right.
She is learned, but she's doing it for profit. She's working for Vader kind of because she has to, but also she's in it for the money.
Yeah,
I think that. Yeah, actually, I think that she represents and a lot of the same things that happened with Ahsoka Tano is you always, all of these franchises, whether it be Harry Potter, DC, Marvel, whatever, they're always introducing new characters, and you hope a character hits. Like, here's a new character in a new superhero comic. Here's a new this, here's a new that. And every once in a while, you get this magic thing that happens. And that absolutely happened with Ahsoka. Something worked right with her. They had a good handle on her. People fell in love with her. And especially the moment she left the Jedi Order, I think that's when she went from being a character that people liked to being like, she is now on her own epic journey. And Doc Aphra, right out of the gate, was just such a interesting character that in a world of Jedis and smugglers and bounty hunters and everything, she broke the mold a little bit. She was this different thing. Like, to your point, she's a treasure hunter in space with very loose morals who takes a job for Darth Vader where she's basically being threatened with death almost every episode and somehow weasels her way out every time. She's just fun. She's a great character. And putting a character like Doc Aphra in any of the series that are coming up, in her own series, in anything, like she again represents that the fun and the silliness along with the action and adventure that you want in a Star Wars story.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. Well, we'll see what happens coming down soon with Ahsoka Tano. Well, not soon, but relatively soon with the Ahsoka Tano character and what result. Because obviously they've already shot this, and so we'll see if that'll be a trailer that comes out soon to kind of get people ready. Because it's supposed to come out, I think, in October, the second season, right? It's supposed to debut in October of this year. So we're rounding that corner as we go into summer, and there's not much else going on in theaters. So why not start dropping some of these trailers to get people excited and get them to revisit the first season all over again while they're self-isolating. So it makes sense to me overall. And I hope to get an interview with Rosario Dawson down the pike if I can as we get closer to the show's release. It'd be kind of fun to put up on the show. And maybe the three of us can do it remotely with her. Who knows? We'll see.
It'd be awesome.
But yeah, it would be fun. All right. Any last things to say before we wrap up? No? All right, good to go. All right, thanks everybody for watching this episode of the Geek Buddies. Always appreciate you all. We always appreciate you all taking the time to download it or to listen to us on the podcast feed. It's always great to hear your thoughts and your responses. And in fact, I spoke to someone who has been listening to us for about 2 months now and said to me that this is his favorite podcast that is on the Outlaw Nation. So that's very sweet of him to say. They said really enjoys all our perspectives and the different kind of perspectives from people. We're not just fans, Michael being an executive, Shannon being a writer in this industry, and me being a critic. It's just different approaches to this material. And it's fun to hear the different points of view. So thank you to all of you who take the time to compliment us. It's always sweet. Shannon, where can they find us?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at @geek_buddies, on Instagram at @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you'd like to follow Mr. Vogel, it's at MK2. And if you'd like to follow Mr. Rocha, it's at The Rocha Says.
Right down there. Mikey.
I just have nothing fancy to say. We're all on quarantine, and I was trying to think of some clever Jedi thing, but I wasn't going to get there in time. So I'm just going to say this, guys, we're all on quarantine. Everybody is at home. Everybody is looking for stuff to do. Tell your friends to check this out. Like, send them Geek Buddies. They'll have months and months and months of back episodes to check out. Join in the conversation. Go ahead and like subscribe below. They're right there. Subscribe down there. Leave us some comments. Some really great comments in the past few weeks that we've been checking out on the YouTube page. If you're listening to us on iTunes or Anchor or Spotify, rate us there, leave comments there, retweet us, Facebook us, tell people on Instagram. Like, let's get this conversation going because, hey, what else are we going to do for the next 2 weeks? Let's just talk about some geeky stuff. Let's pass the time away and be and have as much fun as we can under the circumstances.
Agreed. Well, there you go. That's this episode of the
Geek
Buddies. Hey!